So this cross could have been better, but here's how you did it. So you could have done this cross in 7 moves in 2 different ways, and here they are. And the second one, which is very similar to the first one. Either way, when doing this cross, you do not want to insert this orange piece without inserting this blue piece. Because what you did took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves, when it could have just taken 1, 2, 3 moves. So for your first pair, you then rotated and did this blue-red pair. But you didn't see this green-red pair, which is only 3 moves away from being solved. And that is much faster, so you should have gone for that pair. Your next pair was this green-orange pair, which you did like this. And the solution was great. The only thing I want to point out is that for your first pair, while you're doing this, this pair is unaffected by that and is only going to be a U prime from where it is right now. See? So you could have looked ahead for this pair while you were doing this pair and gone straight into it. Your next pair was this, which you rotated and then rotated again. So you did 2 rotations for this, and you really didn't have to do any. You could have just inserted rotationless. And your last pair was pretty straightforward. No complaints here. And so for OLL, you did 2 look. Obviously, the best thing to do is just to learn the OLL alg. Or this one. But even if you don't know the OLL alg, once you get to here, I highly recommend you use double soon instead of double anti-soon. And that goes like this. And it just flows generally way better than double anti-soon. And so for your PLL, you did this. But you didn't actually finger trick it in the best way. What you really want to do is develop the same exact finger tricks you have for your right J-perm as you would for your left J-perm. So if I do my right J-perm, I'm doing the F prime with my thumb and not regripping at all. So you want to carry those finger tricks and mirror them. That way it flows much better. At first it'll feel unnatural, but once you get it down, it'll be way faster and much more consistent for you. So you did your cross like this. And that was 7 moves and 1 rotation, which is not nearly as good as you could have done this cross. This could have been done in only 5 moves and no rotations, which goes like this. It's important to understand that when you're inserting your last edge in your cross, you never want to rotate to do it, because that's just a waste of rotation and waste time. If you have something like this and your flipped edge is here, then don't rotate and just insert it with F moves. So then you did this blue-red pair first. You don't want to use this algorithm. Instead, you want to just do this. It's much faster and is rotationless. But just as a rule of thumb, don't use this insert when inserting pairs from the front. It only really is useful from the back because it's much more executable from the back, and it's just slow from the front, and you would much rather just do like that or sledgehammer or something like that. You don't really want to use M moves when inserting a front pair, usually. So for your next pair, you did this green-orange pair and rotated. This solution was great, but just as a note, you could do it in 1 move less, like this. And for your next pair, you did this green-red pair. You rotated and did. So you had to rotate twice to do this pair, and you could have done it rotationless like this. It's important to know that for this pair, you can do a lot of different things, including sledgehammer. to pair it up like this, and that way you have a lot of versatility for doing this pair in awkward situations like this. And your last pair was this. Pretty straightforward, nothing to complain about here. And again, you need to learn the OLL alg for this, which is actually not that hard to memorize. It's just an M set up to a soon. So M, and then soon, U, M prime. And you would execute it like this. And your PLL was a J perm, so you did it like this. Nothing much to talk about there, but it did take you a long time to recognize the J perm, so you do need to get your recognition time down on that. Especially since it's like one of the best PLLs. So here are your cross pieces, and you did your cross like this. So this is 8 moves in 1 rotation, and we can actually do it in 6 rotationless. And that can be done in 2 ways. The first, and the second one, which is much better. And the reason it's much better is because the second one is only 3 gen, and the first one is actually 6 gen. That's 3 less faces that you have to turn in order to do cross, so the second one is much faster. So for your first pair, you did a Y prime, another Y prime, a U, another Y prime, a U prime, a U, and only then did you start your pair. Obviously this is really, really bad, and you don't want to have that many rotations or unnecessary U moves before even starting your pair. So you started off here and had to rotate 3 times to see this pair, when it was just right here and you could have just looked and seen it. So before you do any of the rotations, you could have seen it and gone for it like this. Or if you've already done those 3 rotations, then from here you would do it like this. Or like this. Doing this kind of insert only is useful for like last pair stuff and EO stuff, so I wouldn't recommend doing it for your first pair. And also once you've set this up, you have no reason to rotate. You should just insert it with F moves. So then your next pair was this green-orange pair, which you rotated and did like this. Rotate it again. So rotating in the middle of this pair is really bad, and if you're going to rotate, you should do it before the alg, not during. So that would look like this. Or if you're already here, then you shouldn't rotate at all and do this. And the first thing that I'm going to say here is that I would rather pick this pair than this pair, because you can rotate this way and then insert it into the back left, and that way it's really easy to look ahead into your last pair. So you could do something like this, and that way you see this corner and can go straight into this pair. But since you did this pair, I recommend that when you pair it up, you insert it with L, U to L prime like this, because that way it sets up this pair really nice so that it's just a 3-move insert away. But either way, inserting this pair worked out because this pair is pretty easy, which you did like this. Nothing wrong with that solution. So this is where not knowing full OLL really hurt your solve, because this is actually one of the easiest OLL cases out there. It's only 7 moves. And if you notice, the algorithm is just a lefty anti-soon, but with the first and last moves being wide moves. So it would just be like this, but with the first and last moves wide. So that made your solve a lot longer since you did this OLL in 15 moves rather than 7. And then your PLL was an F perm. Not much to talk about in the PLL, but there was a +2, and you shouldn't have done that. There isn't much to say other than that. So you did your cross like this. So you did 10 moves during this cross and 2 rotations, which is really, really bad. And so one way to fix this solution is when you're inserting the pieces like this, don't rotate to solve this piece. Do the D2 beforehand and then insert the piece. But that's definitely not the best way of doing this cross at all. You can do this in 5 moves like this. And also when you inserted your piece like this, you did the D2 with your right hand like that, especially when you're doing moves like R prime F R and your last move is done with the right hand. It's much easier to do the D2 with your left hand because you don't have to re-grip at all. So then you did your first pair like this. You did the red-green pair. So this was not a good solution for this pair. You did 4 rotations from the start of recognizing to the end of the alg, and that's really bad. Honestly, I seriously recommend that you don't pick this pair at all because it's very obvious that you couldn't see this edge until you did your 3 rotations. I'm guessing what you were thinking is that you saw this corner and immediately were trying to find the corresponding edge. The problem with that is that you don't know where your edge is, and for you, the edge was way back here, which is the last place you looked, which is why you did so many rotations. So instead of picking one corner and just guessing where the next edge is, you should pick a pair that you see both pieces for. And there are actually 2. There's this blue-red pair and this green-orange pair. I recommend going for the blue-red pair first. That way you can preserve this, and that would look like this. That way the green pair is taken out. You can insert it like that. But even if you're inserting this red-green pair, once you're looking at the cube from here, you have no reason to rotate in the middle of the alg. You can just insert it with F moves. So your next pair was quite confusing, and I don't understand why you did it the way you did. You inserted this blue-red pair into the wrong slot, and then that made this pair available for a 3-move insert like that. And although that makes sense in terms of preserving pairs, you really should have just inserted this pair into its correct slot because it's a 3-move insert away. Or if you're going to insert this pair into the wrong slot in order to help this pair out, then once you're done with this pair, you should do something clever to finish both of these pairs at the same time, which you didn't do. So you were here for your last 2 pairs, and you inserted this pair first. So this is bad because you're disrupting this pair, and you have a really easy shot at inserting both pairs, since you have a pretty easy case for this diagonal last 2 pairs. You could, for one thing, insert the green-orange pair with a F prime U2F, and that way your pair is set up like this, and you can actually skip OLL with a back insert like that. Or if you want to solve both pairs in just 7 moves, then you could rotate and do something like this. But you did do the pair like this, which messed up this pair, which made your last slot a lot harder, but you did it like this. And you did do it rotationless, so that's good. I am a little confused as to why you don't rotate for some inserts for this specific F2L case, and sometimes you do. I think you should just never rotate, period, and learn how to do that with F moves. So then you had OLL. And then PLL. So again, there's not much to say with the last layer. You should just learn full OLL, and you do have your PLLs down, so nothing else to say there. So for your last solve, you did your cross like this. So although the actual move count for this cross was pretty good, it was only 5 moves, but you did 3 of those moves and then rotated for the last 2, which wastes a lot of time, and you should never rotate to finish your cross. I recommend doing it from a Y2 angle, so you can do it like this. That way it's regripless, and you have this free pair. So for your first pair, you did this. And this was probably your worst F2L choice you've made in all 5 of your solves, because you had this free pair right here, and instead of doing it in 3 moves like that, you picked this pair and did it in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 moves. which is like literally 5 times more than what you could have done. And also just a rule of thumb, for this case in general, when it's not in the right slot and you can't insert it directly with triple sexy or triple reverse sexy, the best thing to do is to do a U and then a sledge, and that way you've paired it up really nicely so that it's just a 3-move insert away. And again, when you have it paired up like this, do not insert it like this. It's way faster to just do that with F moves. So your next pair was pretty good. It was this blue-red pair, and you did it very efficiently. And your next pair was this green-red pair, which you did like this. So for both of these pairs, I don't really have much to say because you did them really well, and your solutions for them were really efficient. And for your last pair, you rotated and did it like this. And again, really good solution, nothing really to complain about here. For OLL, you did this. And then you had an R perm. And again, for last layer, you really should just learn the OLL and maybe drill your R perms because it seems like your finger tricks aren't that ingrained for R perms. So you've got good basics for F2L in last layer and don't seem to have trouble recalling your fundamental algs like basic OLL, basic PLL. But with that being said, here's what you should work on. So the first thing is your F2L habits. You've got a few bad habits that you do during F2L that need to be eliminated and replaced with good habits. And your habits are unnecessary U moves, unnecessary rotations, and picking bad pairs. So for unnecessary U moves, you actually did this in all 5 of your solves where at some point during F2L, you kind of just fumbled and stalled and had to think. And as a result, your thinking sort of transferred into your fingers, and that made you do U moves as like a sign that like the gears are turning in your head. Obviously, doing unnecessary U moves is a sign that the solver is thinking about what they're doing next, but it's pretty safe to say that this is a very ingrained habit of yours, and you might not even notice how bad it can be during your solves. What you want to do in order to fix this is do deliberate practice sessions where you say to yourself, I am not going to do any U moves between pairs until I recognize the case completely. So in one of these solves during these practice sessions, your goal would be to eliminate this habit. So say you're done with cross, and instead of rotating or doing U moves, you want to just look at the cube and find the first pair that looks the easiest. So I would look around the cube and see, oh, this pair looks pretty good. And then I would execute it. And then after I'm done doing that pair, I'd say to myself, don't do any U moves, I have to find the pair first. And then I would look around the cube and go, oh, okay, this pair's pretty close. Now let's do some U moves and do it accordingly. That way you're not wasting any moves. And this is also going to build your look ahead because when you're doing unnecessary U moves, you're basically killing your look ahead. You're not really helping how much you're able to see, you're just wasting time. So with replacing this habit and building a better one, you'll be slowly building better and a much more natural look ahead, and you'll be rewiring your brain to process F2L pairs in a much more streamlined way. So for unnecessary rotations, this is very similar to U moves as they kind of go hand in hand. You did a lot of rotations during your F2L that you didn't need to, a lot of which were during your solutions of pairs. So say you had this pair and you would pair it up and then rotate and then insert it. But this is only 7 moves, so you can just insert it with F moves instead. It's way faster. So even though these habits show up most of the time together, they do require different solutions. And instead of for U moves where you do deliberate timed solves and try to fix your look ahead, for rotations, I recommend doing untimed solves where you just try to have the most efficient CFOP solution that you can. So this is basically doing CFOP FMC. For your untimed solves, you want to just look at the cube and find a pair that you can do rotationless. So this blue-red pair I see first, and I can definitely do rotationless. And then look around the cube and see if you can still do another pair rotationless. So I see this pair, I can definitely do it rotationless. And then can I still do something rotationless? Yes, I can do this blue-orange pair rotationless. And can I still do the F2L rotationless? Well, technically yes, with this 3-move insert you can do it like that, but that's not really speed optimal. And this is one of those cases where it would be a smart idea to just rotate and do it like that. So once you practice a lot of that, you'll start to get a better idea of which rotations are worth it and which rotations are not. You want to be much more deliberate with your rotations and only do it when it's necessary for the F2L solution to be speed optimal. You don't want to do mindless rotations where you're just looking for pieces. That wastes a lot of time. Practicing rotational solves is great, but it's important to know that the best thing to do is not always to never rotate, because you can slow yourself down with 0 rotations as much as you can with too many rotations. Because you might have a really easy pair that you can do just from a rotation angle, but if you refuse to rotate and have to do it from there, then you'll have a much slower solution. But you'll get a better sense of that once you keep on doing untimed solves where you practice efficiency in rotations. And for your third bad habit, which is picking bad pairs, there were a few instances where you had a 3-move insert pair or a free pair literally lying around in the top layer, and you went for a completely different pair that you did in like way too many moves. And so the way to fix this is to do CFOP FMC, which is very similar to the kind of practice I just told you to do with rotations. But instead of being efficient with your rotations, you're just trying to be efficient with moves. So it's literally just fewest moves, but with CFOP. And I'll demonstrate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, or I can cancel, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 49 moves. I'd say that's pretty good. You're aiming for around 50 to 55 moves for now, and as you get better, you want to try to aim for sub 50. So this might not seem like it'll carry directly into your solving, but it will, because untimed practice is just as important as timed practice, because you can't really practice efficiency if you're always turning at breakneck speed. That way you don't give your brain a chance to think about new things to do. And practicing this is going to give you a much better intuition for what pairs to go for first and what pairs to not go for, as you'll literally have a better idea of how many moves it'll take per pair. So number 2 is your cross efficiency. If you count rotations as moves, you had an average of 8.6 moves per cross. But the thing is, God's number for a cross is 8, so if you have an average cross move count of above 8, that means you're doing something wrong. You want to always have your crosses be under 8 moves. The only time you would realistically go for anything longer is if you have some kind of advanced like X cross or double X cross, but that's a way more specific scenario that doesn't apply to you. And just as important as move count, you're also doing a lot of rotations in your crosses, at least 1 per solve. And that wastes a lot of time, because if you're doing a maximum of 8 moves per cross and you're rotating between one of those 8 moves, like this is 8 moves. Like you can do that quickly. Obviously some combinations of 8 moves are slower than other combinations of 8 moves, but you shouldn't ever have to rotate in between. So the way you would fix this is the same way as you would fix bad pairs, is just count how many moves your cross takes. If it's over 8, then find a better cross, because there is going to be a better cross. And if you do find a cross that's 8 moves or less, try to see if you can get it even shorter. The best kinds of crosses are 6 moves or less. And you want to have 7 or 8 move crosses as rarely as possible. Like a 5 move cross is going to be way more beneficial for the momentum of your solve than an 8 move cross, even though it's only a 3 move difference. And your third issue is your turning and your fundamentals. So this is by far the biggest issue in your solving. You have a very strained turning style, and your hands don't look like they're moving naturally or with ease. So let's start with your left thumb. The way you grip the cube with this finger is very sporadic and changes often. You have this tendency, which I see in a lot of cubers, where you push inward with your thumb when you're holding the cube. You have this very inwardly curved grip with your fingers, especially with your thumb. So this causes you to put a lot of pressure on the cube with your thumb, and you don't need to put as much pressure as you are. So start with like picking up the cube and just holding it as relaxed as you can, and make sure your thumbs are curved outward instead of inwards. And you also want to make sure your other fingers are also curved outward instead of inward like that. And once you feel comfortable with holding the cube in a very relaxed, outwardly curved grip, then just start doing like, simple turns that aren't too demanding, without really trying to affect the way you're gripping the cube. You still want to be very relaxed, and even though you are re-gripping, you are maintaining the same level of relaxation. And another thing, in terms of finger tricks, I'm not sure if you know your double flicks among both hands, but it doesn't seem like you do. So you really, really need to learn how to double flick U2s with your right and left hand, and D2s with your right and left hand. Personally, I use index middle for U2, which I think everyone does. And for D2, I know not everyone does this, but I do ring middle for both hands. You can find what works for you. People do pinky ring or ring pinky. There are a lot of options, but make sure you learn how to double flick from both hands regardless. So that's pretty much it. Once you follow these steps and rework your turning style and fundamentals and rework the way you grip the cube, working on your other 2 steps will come a lot easier, because you'll have a much better foundation for turning and finger tricks. And that'll really help you for learning new algs, because you'll be able to try out different finger tricks for a new algorithm that initially may look awkward. And it's important to know that there are many ways of finger tricking the same alg. Not all algs, of course, but there are good ways and there are bad ways, and there are ways that you could find out just by messing around with the cube. But it takes time for your turning style to feel more natural and feel like you're not doing that much work anymore. But once you get that under your fingers and fix your F2L habits and your cross efficiency, you'll definitely see a lot more consistency with your sub 20 times. And after learning full OLL, you'll definitely see yourself approaching sub 15 pretty quickly. With that being said, I hope this helped. Happy cubing. Bye.
Wait. You forgot to subscribe. Oh, also, I have an Instagrizzle and a Snapchadoodle.
All right, bet.